Let's go to Shan, who's standing by in Washington, D.C. And Shan, Christine Blasey Ford says that she was assaulted at this house party in 1982. Kavanaugh says he wasn't there. I mean, this is literally a case of she said, he said. But legally, where is the burden of proof?
Well, it's not an actual court proceeding. It's certainly not a criminal trial. So there really isn't a burden of proof in the usual sense. There's obviously, in the political sense, as John was alluding to, this very high-stakes political issue, there's a burden of persuasion. And the persuasion is that the Senate has to be persuaded that this is the right person for the job. So with regard to these allegations, I have to say, legally looking at it, as a former sex crimes prosecutor, there's a very troubling pattern that is emerging. The combination of the alcohol, the actions alleged towards the women, that's a pattern which, if I was looking at this from the point of view of an investigator, it would be a no-brainer. This deserves very careful investigation. And for this he said, she said aspect of it, that's actually a pet peeve of mine as a former prosecutor. That's sort of a fiction. It's never just the case that there are only two people in a vacuum that this happened between. There's always evidence that can corroborate it or not. People that saw them before, people saw them afterwards, statements they may have made. And it's very telling here that the majority in control of the committee wants it to be a he said, she said. They put them in a vacuum. They won't have any other witnesses. They don't want any trauma experts. They want it to be just one person's word and then the other person's word. So it's a very troubling situation, not really well suited for revealing the truth to the American public.
Gotcha. Now, let's take the conversation back to John Avlon, sitting by in New York. And John, as you heard Shan say just then, this is not an investigation. It's a hearing. This is about perception and persuasion. We know that a vote is scheduled for tomorrow. Do you think this vote is going to go ahead to advance Kavanaugh's nomination?
That is one of the big questions. Republicans understand, or should, that if they go forward to the vote tomorrow, they will be accused of rushing this. As Shan said, they have not called other witnesses. Indeed, there is one individual, Mark Judge, who is alleged to have been in the room when this incident occurred with Professor Ford. They have chosen not to take up any of the other accusations that are out there, two of which are public, two of which are anonymous. So there will be calls for them to slow the roll. Republicans want to push this through because we have the politics of this. The midterms looming. Democrats on their side will say Merrick Garland, President Obama's nominee, eminently respectable centrist 62-year-old jurist, was denied a vote at all in a political play. So those are some of the pressures behind it. And then what will be interesting to see is whether this flood of accusations, the impact it has on senators who may be, still that precious few that haven't made up their mind yet. Because there is certainly, with the volume of accusations, a sense that this could be an attempt to do death by headline, where it's a preponderance of accusations as opposed to evidence. And that may come into people's minds as well. But this is not a legal proceeding. This, at the heart of the matter, is political, it's perception, and those two things are inexorably linked.
Absolutely. Let's take it back to Shan Wu. And Shan, again, this is about perception. This is political. It's not legal. But we do know that a veteran sex crimes prosecutor will be there at this hearing questioning Blasey Ford. You know, this is a very intimidating scenario. What kind of questioning, what line of questioning should we expect from her?
Well, it's a very odd situation, actually. I think it's rather disgraceful that the senators have abdicated their role in asking the questions. I mean, it's silly. They can't ask their own questions. It's an odd role for a sex crimes prosecutor because usually she would be on the side of the survivor presenting the evidence. And, we don't know. Maybe that's what she'll be doing. But the questions would be to very methodically elicit the facts of what she recollects and putting it forth. I think the big question is whether she's actually going to be more of an inquisitor and be cross-examining the survivor in this case, which is just the opposite role of what she usually has. Now, with Judge Kavanaugh, he's really in more of the role of the defendant in this case, and normally a prosecutor would be cross-examining him, would be looking for inconsistencies in his recollection, admissions he may have made. He's walked back a little bit, his claim that he really never drank to excess. So those are areas that you would look for her to be pushing hard in.
This will be a day of reckoning in the U.S. Senate, and the world will be watching. Shan Wu joining us live from Washington, D.C. John Avlon live from New York. A big thank you to you both.